Welcome to UpYourStack podcast. I'm your host, Noah Burke. I'm also the co-founder of the OBO Group and elite HubSpot solutions partner. Every week, we feature conversations with some of our favorite developers and app companies who either built their apps on HubSpot or have integrated with HubSpot, help you get the most out of your HubSpot tech stack. And today, I have Steven here with Dealfront to talk about what Dealfront is and what they do. So, Steven, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on there. Looking forward to it.
I'll start off two ways. One, what is Dealfront? And then two, what's your role at Dealfront? Now you can reverse it on me and say, well, let me start with my role and then get into Dealfront. So I'll let you kind of lead that portion.
Maybe jump a little bit before Dealfront. So Dealfront is the follow-on from the merger between Leadfeeder and EchoBot. So your audience might be more familiar with Leadfeeder, the website intelligence tool that was more globally known before the merger. EchoBot, more locally known in the European market due to the fact that they were the leading player within data for the European markets. So Leadfeeder was started by Pekka, Vincent and Herc back in 2012 after their kind of venture into website intelligence earlier with Snoopy, and it was a way of being able to bring website intelligence to the wider market. Was kind of actually built off following a lot of the examples from HubSpot. They wanted to start off with a freemium version. So they started our test of the market with a free version and then started to bring in paid-in features and grew that way. So a lot of learnings came from HubSpot, and then also an integration with HubSpot was one of the earlier plays that they implemented with Leadfeeder. But if we jump back to the merger a little bit, that actually happened just around the pandemic. It was an introduction by actually a investment company called Great Hill Partners, who was looking at both EchoBot and Leadfeeder and thought they were actually better together. So we had a better together story. The website intelligence piece aligned with the deep contact and company data set. So aligning those two together. So after conversations, both with Great Hill Partners and different sessions with the Dealfront, what became the Dealfront teams, we finally got to the point of merging. So about 2 years ago now, it's gone very quickly. So now we've got more rounded platform. So we have the website intelligence piece, formerly known as Leadfeeder, and we have our sales intelligence solution, formerly known as EchoBot. And what I do within the organization, I sit within our partnerships team, working with our strategic and technical partners, as well as our agency partner program as well, which came from the Leadfeeder side and has continued to grow into Dealfront.
Absolutely. And so tell me a little bit more, what problems is Dealfront solving for these days? You know, you mentioned there's kind of two different markets and audiences. You have both marketing professionals and you also have sales professionals. I guess, who is this customer that you're targeting? Why are people essentially purchasing or using Dealfront? And yeah, let's kind of have that part of the portion of the conversation.
Yeah, definitely. So we class ourselves as the go-to-market platform for Europe. So we're looking for companies that are looking to grow their sales and marketing presence within the European market. We're soon to be launching our US data pack. Our website intelligence solution is still global, but it means that our B2B contact and company data set will have more of global coverage. But the solution that we solve in the two parts of the solution, we start with the website intelligence pieces, letting marketing understand which companies are visiting the website, what channels they'd come from, where they're spending time on site, what intent they may have, so that they can understand which campaigns are working, where should we be spending time, what content is really relating with our ICP. And then really powering the sales team as well to understand, where should I be spending my time? Which prospects are the hottest? Which prospects have I maybe forgotten about? And then on the site and looking at this piece of information that I can then go back to them with and help them through that. And then also on the data side of things, empowering you to understand what your total addressable market is, help you build lookalike audiences so that you can start to go out and target on platforms, help them keep your data in the CRM up to date as well with a product that we call Data Care. So really just empowering sales and marketing within the data that they need to be able to make light work over their day-to-day.
Absolutely. And so, I mean, obviously, all that's really valuable for both sales and marketing teams. And what would you say are some of the key reasons Dealfront, obviously Lead Feeder, gained traction over the years? Like, what was it that kind of drew those audiences and customers to you?
Yeah, one of the things that we always hear from our prospects and customers is ease of use within the platform. We've always had seamless integrations with the likes of HubSpot, which has always been really powerful. We've always put data at the forefront and as part of that compliance. So one of the big things within the data space is making sure that we meet regulations in the correct markets. So we've done the arduous work of making sure that our data is housed in the EU. We meet EU regulations. Our head office is actually based in Germany, and I think if you can pull it off in Germany, you can do it anywhere. So that's testament to our hard work
Well,
and we can
I,
teach.
I think one thing that you really said there, and even if you go to the website, it positions around it really is the data website intelligence company for the European marketplace. And I guess describe to me a little bit reason why that's such a strong, important positioning versus more generic. Like what makes the European market so unique?
I think it's the nuances to the different parts of the market. If you look in the DAC market, for instance, even when we kind of went through the merger, there's different formalities that I was never aware of and different ways of operating. And that's not just, as say, on the legislative side, but also in the way that companies in those regions do business. So that was something that we had to really address and something we've been able to help a lot of companies on. Our sales team members have been able to use that experience to be able to help our customers enter into these given markets and make sure that they're doing it in the right way.
Yeah, and I can imagine that's really important. So how do customers leverage Dealfront? We talked about the two different audiences. We talked about kind of your marketing and we talked about sales, and you did mention something around alignment. But what are the actual benefits from using it? And maybe kind of talk about what have companies seen in terms of results from actually leveraging Dealfront in their operations?
Yeah, of course. So that's a great question. So from being able to implement our website intelligence piece and starting to actually have inbound leads and spot that people are aware of the solutions that they are providing and be able to actually start addressing people at different stages of the funnel and not just having to wait until someone fills in a form and can actually start to influence the sales cycle right the way through is something that we hear.
Talk about that for a second, because I think a lot of the listeners in the audience are like, what do you mean you can actually identify the person visiting the website? In a world like HubSpot, you first have to fill out the form on a website or click on a link that you sent them via an email to be able to actually identify who that person is. But what's different about Dealfront's ability to do it? And why are people interested specifically in that capability, which I know is huge, but I would love to hear from you.
Definitely. So that was built from the lead reader side of things. So back in 2012, we started off built on top of GA actually initially. So we were able to identify companies using the API through that and our own proprietary database. And then overnight that was turned off, but luckily we could seen it coming and replaced it with our own tracker. So we have an element of JavaScript that goes on the site, easily implemented through Google Tag Manager. Once that's in play, we're able to take the IP address, run that against our proprietary database, and then be able to show you which companies are visiting, what channel they came from, so you can understand which channels are bringing in your ideal customer profiles, and then where they're spending time on site as well, and what they're engaging with, what content is working best. If they're watching videos as well, so video content, and if they do
Sure.
come in to fill in a form, as you mentioned, then we're able to actually then do better attribution because we can see that they visited way before that form actually was submitted from, direct source. A lot of us marketers hate to see when a
Correct.
lead comes through as direct source when we know there was potential engagements with the content that we've created in the past. So yeah, that's one of the ways that
And
tool really helps
and
us.
how does it work now in the age of COVID, or we should say, I don't want to say, well, it is post-COVID from the lockdowns, but now a lot of people work from home. Like, how does it work to still be able to identify? I work from my home office 4 out of 5 days a week, and I'm in the office like I am today, where we have this podcast studio. But how does it work with all these individuals from home? How are you guys able to identify who they are?
We have our own mechanisms for being able to do that. It was something that we spotted a while even before kind of COVID hit, as we were a remote first company at the time of Lead Feeder. So I was working within the UK, but was still being able to be identified by our platform. We have the mechanisms to be able to do it. And also a lot of people, even though they're working remotely, will still be connected to a company network. So
Sure.
real abilities there, but we also do have mechanisms for things that fall outside of that as well.
And even though the merger happened, are the majority of individuals and organizations who are obviously leveraging Dealfront, are they leveraging Dealfront from the standpoint of this reveal type scenario where you're revealing who's visiting the website? Is that the most common use case? But I mean, just walk me through what are some other common use cases for leveraging you guys?
Yeah, that tends to be a really good starting point for a lot of organizations that will start off with the website intelligence piece, start to understand which companies are visiting, where they're spending time, and then they'll start asking the question of, well, okay, now we understand which companies are visiting. How can we get deep into the data and understand which contacts we should be reaching out to? What deeper data do you have around these organizations? What does that look like? And that's where we can move into our sales intelligence solution, where we have a product called Target. Within Target, we have 210 million contacts, 40 million companies. Hopefully one of the team doesn't fact check me on that, but I think that's where we were at as of today when I was looking. And what that allows you to do is look deep into that data. We have over 100 different filter options so that you can start to really address, who is your total addressable mark, who is of interest, to me to reach out to. We have a lookalike audience tooling within there. So that's powered there by AI as well. So we can do segments as part of that. So that's a really kind of light bulb moment when companies start to put their current customer base into that tooling and start to see these segments that they weren't even aware of and now starting to go, these are why they became customers of ours, because they're a part of this segment we weren't really sure of. How can we start to market towards this segment, or how can we build an outreach strategy around that segment? So it's really cool to see how people move through the product. We also have our promote function as well, which is our programmatic display advertising tool, which sits inside of our web visitor subscription. So that's normally another stepping stone of when people start to see, okay, now we've got this traffic coming to the website, how can we either get them back, or how can we target companies and show the top of the funnel, further for inbound. So that's really cool to see people explore.
So you're getting more into what we would consider the ABM space, like the demand base of the world, where they're actually able to kind of start targeting it via ads, which I know is a really hot sector, which leads me to the next question. Who do you compete against and how do you differentiate? Because to me, you're kind of in ABM, you're in data, and you're in website intelligence as like kind of three big areas. But I guess tell me, how do you differentiate from these competitors who are in the space?
That's a great question. And I think we're very lucky with Greg Hill Partners, who came in as part of the investment firm, who were first invested in ZoomInfo. So a lot of kind of knowledge came from that and steered the way we were going to shape into the future. So I would say ZoomInfo is definitely for the sales intelligence solution, and Cognizant that kind of sit within that space there as well. Apollo as well. From there, we look at the more website intelligence pieces. Lead info or lead forensics would sit within in that space. And then, as you mentioned, demand base as well. So they're all kind of competitors that we start to see through the sales cycle. And I would say the reason how we come out on top in some of these cases is when companies are looking for that compliance, they're looking for that European data coverage, they're looking for a tool that they can grow through as well. So a growth tool where we're not just a web visitor identification tool and they can't go anywhere after that and they have to plug in something else. So we're starting to answer to these different use cases and are able to solve problems that a lot of our customers are seeing.
Interesting. Yeah. And again, you bring up the European use case, which is huge, especially from a positioning standpoint. A number of clients we've heard say, hey, GDPR or the European markets where your servers are being stored or held. So I know that's a pretty common thing. It's a really good, interesting positioning. And I think it's really important for all the listeners out there. If you do have a European branch or team or headquarters, Dealfront probably should be top of your list to check out in these scenarios. And then what gaps are you filling in the HubSpot ecosystem? Like, how do you plug in with HubSpot? What gaps do you fill in that ecosystem?
Yeah, so HubSpot had their own kind of feature set, quite a few. It's been sunsetted now, I believe. So they had HubSpot Prospect, which was a simplified version of our tooling, which would allow you to see which companies were visiting, but there was no kind of filter options. You couldn't see the
Mhm.
number of visits that
Pretty
were going
basic.
on. You couldn't see what was the level of intent. But it was a really good introduction into website intelligence. And that's where a lot of people were starting and then looking for additional features from there. So that's why we really came in and wanted to then bring our filters and be able to build out these different use cases, but be able to pass that data back inside of HubSpot so that if you wanted to, you didn't have to have your sales team sat within our tool. You could have them go in, set up a list of filters, be able to see what data was important to them, and then be able to push that back into the HubSpot ecosystem. So that would be done within the timeline, or you could create, if there was a really good use case, would be kind of net new leads. So you would set up a
Mm.
custom view within our platform, maybe looking at certain intent pages, companies within a certain region, within a particular industry and headcount. So that would be your filter set. And if everything matched that criteria, then you would create the new company within inside HubSpot and set up a task for the sales team to then look at that and maybe start an outreach strategy. So that was just a simple use case of how our customers were using it.
Yeah, and I can definitely see that as a pretty valuable use case, especially for net new leads to be able to go ahead and say, hey, listen, these companies have visited our website multiple times. Check them out, reach out to them. Do we need to be able to done? I think those are your highest likely, highest propensity clients to actually do business with you, which is awesome. What's the future look like for Dealfront? And what does your future roadmap look like? And then the follow up to that is how does AI fit into it?
So the future is that we're going to be expanding our sales intelligence solution into the US market. So our website intelligence solution has always been global, but it's now great that we're actually going to be able to serve our US customers.
Awesome. Well, this has been fantastic, Stephen. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, talking about Dealfront. Listeners, thank you for joining us. And that wraps it up. Again, Up Your Stack is a weekly podcast featuring HubSpot app partners who've either built their apps on HubSpot or integrated with HubSpot. And this show is sponsored by the OBO Group, again, an elite HubSpot solutions partner. If you're interested to learn more about or level up your own HubSpot, feel free to reach out to theobogroup.com. And of course, welcome to find me on LinkedIn. Again, thanks for joining us.